The reason I think that's the same thing I'm trying to make simple is like know your ground, understand your organization first, do a gap analysis of what exactly where it is standing, what risks you're standing with, and then you know where to go with. Second part is you should know what is your risk appetite. What do you mean by risk appetite? For organizations like let's say you are a compliance organization, a fintech organization, or a healthcare organization, you have compliance to follow. So you might require more controls to follow than the others. Or you just joined a startup company, right? There you are setting up a cybersecurity organization. The controls differ. Your organization should look like guardrails. Your controls, what you are building, should look like guardrails with which the organizations could scale. You should not build for full on, I need everything now. That will not happen in a startup. So you need to go along with the organization's risk appetite and the business aptitude, etc. The key reason why I'm giving this dimension is unlike the previous days where cybersecurity leaders are seen as like security guards at the entrance, today's cybersecurity leaders, the dynamic cybersecurity leaders who you are or you are going to be, is seen as a business enabler. What does that mean? You are the person enabling the business by adding additional controls. A Ferrari can run at that speed only because it can stop in few seconds or few nanoseconds. Yes or no?
Yes.
It is not because of the speed at which it is running, the speed at which it can stop. That is what gives you that stability. That is what makes you run. That is what we are. That is cybersecurity. Understand the power of it and have a gauge of the system and build the controls according to the business. I have worked in that company. I will apply here. It doesn't work that way. So go with that.
Thank you so much, Sadhu. I think that was a very insightful example of Ferrari. So that's the foundation. Now let's talk about what happens when tools meet real users. Alka, when companies implement security tools, they often assume users will behave exactly as intended. Why does this assumption break? Why does this assumption persist and what breaks the effort?
Hello everyone, good afternoon. So I will answer this question from GRC perspective, audit and GRC perspective. So we have heard from many people like our organization is fully compliant, so we are secure. But it is correct? Yes or no? It's right or wrong? It's not, in reality, it's not the scenario, right? Organization is compliant doesn't mean it's secure. So what is happening when like when we create the security control, we assume the user behavior, which is the ideal behavior. User will not click on the button. User will follow the process, the policy, everything. But in reality, when someone is in hurry, some emergency situation has been created, or someone has in pressure or stress, they click on the link and they approve on the link, and that's where the security breach happens. I have seen one of the organization which is recently ISO 27001 certified and SOC 2 certified, and every policy control everything on the place, and leadership is on confident that our organization is secure. We have all the security control in place. But on the Friday evening, some mail came, and it was the phishing mail. One senior employee of the company has clicked on that mail and approved that. Okay, so he was thinking that it is some routine mail, but it was the phishing mail. That's where thing has been started to break. So real, it is not that you develop policy, you develop control, and you assume that user will, follow the ideal behavior. It is users' behavior need to be considered when the controls is not breached in terms of pressure or some emergency situation. So people's behavior need to be understood into developing any kind of policy or controls.
Right. So that brings us to the human side of it. Abhilasha, maybe you can share an example where training or behavioral insight had more impact than adding another tool.
Okay, thanks Anupriya first for having me in this panel, and very excited to be part of this dynamic panel with all women I love a lot. And thank you all to be part of this last session of today. That also gave us a motivation to talk on this topic. So coming to the question, adding new tools and talking that users are going to behave the way organizations are thinking. It's just similar to, like, I can say it in a funny word, that perfect behavior from user in an imperfect environment. There are so many things which user needs to do. If I'll give you one example, like let's say the security is not there. Okay, passwords are very weakest link. Let's make secure passwords. So now we have a complex chain of creating the password. And what we expect from user is to have a full big list of password created with a very, very strong factors like combination of alphabets, numbers, special characters. And we are expecting that user to change that password every 3 months. We are also expecting from the user to not use last 3 password. We are also expecting the user do not use commonly used words in the password. What we are talking about, it's a human. It is going to use multiple application. It is going to use multiple tools, and you have so many restrictions. You are having so many controlled environment for a user, and then you are expecting that the user is going to perform naturally the way we have designed the system. You are not thinking that if we have another layer of security like MFA, user is going to click it because you have trained that user that approval will come for MFA. Now what happened with MFA fatigue? User is so habitual to click, 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 and they're also thinking that some testing is happening, and they are caught with MFA fatigue. So user are going to behave the way they are going to take it in an ease so that the productivity will not be affected. You can't expect a proper common behavior or straightforward behavior from the user. When we talk about the tools, we can't say that if we are adding a new tool, the system is going to be secure. Every tool is adding one more layer of kind of a complexity for the user. As we talk about the things, you are accessing the applications. Now you have conditional access for the applications. Another layer to make it secure. If I'm from marketing, I'm traveling a lot, and if conditional access is there, I'm not able to access it. Adding one more tool, adding one more policy. So what we are doing right now in the organization, what I've seen is we are making it so controlled, so policy driven, where we just forgot to have a proper balance between security and the productivity. And that's very important nowadays. When we see training and awareness, that is important. We have to make sure that every employee in the organization, tech or non-tech, because both are going to use your environment, they should know what is a normal behavior, what is a normal ping which is coming for approval, and what is abnormal. When Alka was mentioning about phishing email, they should be able to identify those phishing emails which are coming. What are the red flags which can come in the email? What kind of urgency is coming? If the organization is going to check on these small pointers, I think there is no requirement of having multiple tools to manage security. Even with humans, alerted mind, attentive mind, and following the process, will be able to manage so many things with a very, very simple environment. That's what I understand, and that's what I've seen. That is the take on these 2 pointers. Anupriya from my side.
Thank you so much, Abhilasha. So let's zoom out a little bit and see how these decisions are made. So Satyavati, let's shift to the leadership lens. You have spent a lot of time in boardrooms where security decisions are made. In your experience, do different leadership perspectives actually change how security decisions are made, or are they made the same regardless?
I like the question. I just connect back to Abhilasha's point of culture, right? So, how many of us actually do not park in the no parking zone? I need a hands raised. How many of you do not park when it's mentioned as no parking? Very few hands, huh? That's very disciplined candidates, right? And one more thing, right? When in the school time, when the teacher said silence, how many of you are really silent? Right. So there are always 20% of the people or 30% of the people very disciplined, follow the processes and follows whatever. There are 70% of the time, right? 60 to 70% of the time, people do not follow policies and controls. Yes or no? That applies to the awareness part which has come in. Sometimes I correct saying, hey, yaar, why these people are not following? But the answer comes immediately backwards. If they are following everything, then I do not need a cybersecurity team at all. Right? If they are following, they don't follow. But how do you make it easy for follow? I think that's the key thing I think we should understand. Make it easy for them. Reward for positive behaviors. Always I've seen people actually working on negative behaviors, punishing them. I think we should reward on the positive behaviors. Then they want to showcase, I have done this great thing. The great thing is just following the process. Yes or no? I think that's the type of thing we need to bring in. I'm just connecting back to Abhinasha's point. I can't stop myself answering that. But this is a common problem cybersecurity leaders face because bringing the culture in the organization is the toughest thing to follow. But because any link which you are clicking might lead to a big incident and that lead to a trust issue. Coming to the leadership, right? So the leadership part, I think I mentioned earlier, depending upon what industry you are part of, that's one part. Second is what industry the person have come from. You understand what I mean? For example, my majority of the 25 or 26 years of journey, I've spent in BFSI segment or regulated segment. So I work in that mentality. Hey, here, these are needed, mandatory. Why? How can an organization cannot have these simple controls, which are mandatorily needed? Imagine telling the same to a startup company or a SaaS company where I'm now working. See, that's where I'm saying the differences, right? So different leaders behave based on their different experiences, also based on different ideas and the methods and principles they have. But how do you bring it to the table? How do you make it to the relevance of the organization is, again, coming back to the first topic. So you could be a great leader in the previous company, but doesn't work in the current company because it's completely different. The same applies for you also to understand when you are joining a new diverse organization, understand why the other leaders are behaving the way they are. Just don't immediately fight. Instead, understand why they are saying this. Oh, can you tell me what is the perspective behind this? Do you have any additional answer? Ask questions to get more insights of why that insight is coming in completely different way. That's how you understand, because we are all human. We are not perfect. We come with different experiences. Once leaders do that, no, I think organizations will be great. But most of the cases, it never happens. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Satyavati. That is straight up life lessons. I hope everyone got that. Staying with leadership decisions for a moment, what is the one security practice, Alka, which organizations rely heavily on, but it creates a false sense of security?
So my perspective for on the point of false sense of security, we all know organization do all the certifications and audit just to prove that they are secure. But do you think audit and all the certification make them secure? No, right? Because you have certifications, you have cleared all the audit, you have all the green dashboard and all audit are clean. It doesn't mean you have implemented control. The control is there, but have you reviewed the how this control behave in different situation? If the process is different, the stress situation has come, how this control will expose to real risk. Do you understand? So basically, it's not about audit or it's not about certification. It's about how the control will behave in different situation. I will take one scenario. one of the organization which is all certification they have, and they are very proud. We have all the certification, and after few months they have there is one breach. The vendor access review that needed to be reviewed quarterly, and it was not reviewed. Okay, so control is there. And why it is not reviewed? Because they were taking it as a task or as a checklist. So control is there, evidence was there, checklist was tick mark, but they haven't reviewed the risk of that control. So basically, when some audit happened, doesn't mean that things has been secure, or audit has happened doesn't mean you pass the audit or you complete the everything. It is just as the audit. So that is creating false sense of security.
Thank you so much, Alka. So, what we have learned right now, we have learned that if you want to implement security, you first look at what's there right now, what is existing, what assets you have, do a gap analysis. Don't assume an ideal user behavior. Train people. Train people all the time. Focus on actual behavior than just loading up tools. And very importantly, not all size fits all. Not every size fits all. See what the situation is, see where the company is at, and then decide what you need and what to do with it. Okay, so looking ahead, not everything organizations need is getting the same attention. So Abhilasha, as security environments evolve, some priorities still get pushed aside. What is the one capability or mindset which organizations need in the next few years, but they're not investing enough in that?
Okay. That's a different question which you have asked, because generally people are asking what are the priorities organizations are having. So you are asking in from different perspective. So I'm sure that you all will agree that the things which organizations are taking care, alerts needs to be there, the risk should be designed, threat mitigation, incident response, automation, orchestration, all those things organization is thinking about. But what I think is, for example, let's say if there is a fire, who is going to take care of that fire so that it will not going to damage the entire infra? Who is having that ownership? Who is know that this fire will be stopped by doing these kind of steps? So organizations are working on designing beautiful dashboards, creating beautifully stories for the managers, but who is going to take the decision? After the decision, who is actually going to perform? Who is going to take the ownership of that particular incident? I think that's where the lack is there. That's what we need to take care of. Like when we talk about the identity breaches, and we say that identity attacks are very, very low hanging fruit now, because attackers are attacking, breaching the identity with real credentials which are available. So attackers are not breaking anything. It's a very simple way to get entry into the system if they have a real credentials. If you don't have a proper control policies or the access reviews which Alka mentioned, you're still not able to figure out that the privilege access which I have given to user A for specific project, for specific time period, I have not assigned it just in time. I've given it full access. Enjoy it. So who is going to take that ownership? Who is going to take action on the decision which we have designed for automated response? If organizations are going to also look on these aspects, that will be, I think, beautifully going to secure the entire thing. Not see the goody picture. After that picture, what kind of action needs to be taken? I think that is important. Who is going to take that action? So we should not work on are we secured? We should be taking the action that who is going to take the action if this happens? Who is owner of that? So I think these are the things which I have in my mind, which I want to highlight. But there may be others also which you can figure out.
Building on this, Vandana, what are your thoughts?
I will just add on to what Abhilasha said, because
When we talk about technical skills, anyone can have technical skills, but the right decision making is something which is the key when something goes wrong. Because that's what we are working towards. We need to train our leaders. Let's say, Alka was saying that phishing emails, people click on that. A lot of times, company CEOs, they click on such things or they get phished. And that's very common that has happened with not just startups, but enterprise CISOs that have happened. So one thing become a challenge is that how do you deal with that? I think that decision making is something which is key. You need to understand that who's going to be responsible, who's going to be accountable, who's going to be informative, because everyone should know. And when something happens, I can't question that who did that. It should be how we can correct it. And if a system goes down, how quickly we can get it up. Because there is not just money, but the reputation which is at stake. If you are part, if let's say there's a cloud account, because we are mostly everyone is on cloud now, which we used to say that we will never be on cloud, especially banks used to say, no, we cannot be. But the things that we have seen during pandemic, we had to move to cloud. There were startups who completely shifted to cloud. There were enterprises, their accounts, their systems, everyone was remote. I think till now, there are a lot of organizations, I'm working remote till now. So now comes is that if something goes wrong, whom you're going to be responding. Second thing is the trust. I think, or people who can speak up. As much as a CISO can speak up, there is a person who's an analyst should have the authority to speak up. Oh, this is an event. I feel this could be this way can harm our organization. That's where it should start. Now, for example, I love going on vacations, like literally. Especially December is a month when I love going on vacations. I shut down everything. Now, if I am a CISO and there is an incident that happens, we can't say that CISO has to be 24/7. We say that, but trust me, they don't have to. Or for that matter, CEO. If that person goes on a vacation and if something happens, who will be responsible? Who will be working on that? Who will be talking to media? And it's not just technical aspect, it's about people skills as well. So as much as we talk about people skills, we need to train our leaders and the people who are working on actual things on the tech, and on the ownership perspective. You need to have a RACI metrics. Know everything. Everyone should know everything, that who is going to be reported, who's going to be talked to, like whom I am going to be speaking. If I'm going to be speaking to Satya, or Satya is going to talk to media, she should know, yes, she's going to be the one who will be speaking with media. So those basic skills are actually something which is very, very important nowadays. And again, I'm going to go back to AI, because AI is something which you can't just rely on blindly. We're still new, we're still fresh, we still don't have ample amount of data. So we need to train everyone around it, at least to an extent, so that they can answer certain questions. And I have seen college students using ChatGPT, school students using ChatGPT. So don't just blindly do that. If something goes wrong, it's not a technical problem, it's the skills. When we talk about AI or LLM, it's not just that we are training it. It's a smart parrot. Whatever you give it, it's going to blabber out anywhere and everywhere. You don't even know about it. And breaches have happened because of that. So be careful about that. Yes, yeah, sure. So since AI came in, I can't stop myself, right? Yeah. So AI is a very sweet thing. Everybody wants to talk about AI. Yeah, same with me. So I just want to talk about AI, right? So nowadays you are seeing something called agentic AI. You might have heard some sessions. Who is the owner of AI, by the way? For example, you created agent. Agent is doing a transaction. Agent AI or a AI agent, ABC, whatever, is taking a decision of approving a insurance policy. Yeah, okay. Vandana raised a claim. I do not approve. AI agent says, I do not approve. Who will answer that when Vandana comes back? Why did you not do it? Who is the person answering that? Is it Satya or is it, who is that? So I think the ownership of having that AI agents as, identity issue, that's an identity issue I'm speaking about. How do you connect it back to a human entity? Why you need to connect it back to a human entity is because if something goes wrong in the process, AI will not lose job. Yes or no? AI will live forever. Who will lose job? People, yes? Somebody should be accountable to take care of it. Who is taking the money for that service? there's a human there. So end of the day, every decision coming out of the AI, there should be connection back to a human. A human identity or a human association is needed for every AI agent or workflows. Same applies to non-human agents, right? Non-human accounts like your system accounts, service accounts, API accounts, which are working. So what happens? Something goes there. Who is the owner behind it? So the rationale what I am speaking about is, I think, connecting to the point what you're mentioning. In general, people itself, we are not able to establish accountability. That's a big issue already. Now we have a bigger problem where we have AI agents coming up. We do not have ownership. The reason why we are discussing this at the larger length is innovation is moving very fast, security coming very slow. So watch out and call out this area. Okay, you are building this AI. In case this goes wrong, who is responsible? There should be a name associated to it and an escalation matrix. That's what I want to just share and then give it back to you.
Thank you, sir. So what we understood that security is not just about tools, frameworks. It's also about users, and more so having that internal framework within the organization of who is responsible, who can take responsibility, who's the backup, sharing the responsibility and also giving voice to those analysts who are figuring out such issues. I think to close, I would say if it means making better decisions, it should be based on how people and systems actually work when things are about to break. So thank you so much to our panelists who keep this discussion grounded and honest. And thank you everyone for being a part of it. That's all.